Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics. This is the Metawatch video for the 19th of January. I'm going to do a quick run through the UK meta, talk about some of the events that happened over the last week. I'm going to talk about some upcoming UK events, then I'm going to roll into a wider meta-analysis, talk about the game stats and what's winning right now, what's strong, what's not, and do a bit of a deep dive on two of the teams that I think are more interesting in the meta right now as opposed to just talking about what's necessarily winning all the big stuff. And then I'm going to go into a benefit for subscribers, a tactical tip for people, and then finally finish on a Patreon priority question. So that's what's to come. And so with all that said, let's get straight into it. Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Killteam 40k YouTube channel focusing on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm here to help give you the tips and tricks that elevate every part of your Killteam experience. So no matter if you're a casual or a competitive player, there should be something here for you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's a few ways you can go about doing so. You can join the Patreon, where you get access to members only Discord, Patreon priority questions, early access to content, exclusive content, and tournament awards. Or if you find yourself buying Killteam goodies or hobby supplies, you can use one of our affiliate links in the description below, or discount codes with Crossfire Games and GG Prints. We're always keen to hear your thoughts and feedback, so don't leave that comment box empty. Let us know what you think. Once again, thanks for your support, and with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, so there was two events in the UK over the weekend. There was the Killteam Brighton event, Battlegrounds 3. It was a 4-round event, had 27 players, and I actually managed to attend this event. What I will say about this one is it was a bit of a shark tank. So when it comes to, I would suggest, top UK players, they're pretty much all there, right? So like, sure, small event, 27 players, but it was a tough 4 rounds. But it was a great event. As I said, I hadn't been to Brighton before, so I was down to the Dice Saloon. First time at that venue. It was great to be able to check it out and be able to get some games in. So shout out to the Brighton scene. If you guys are interested in going to tournaments, I highly recommend checking out one of the Brighton ones. It was great fun. So let's talk through the top 3 as I would do normally. And then I will later on, because it rolls into a sort of Patreon priority question, talk about the event in a bit more detail. Because I think it'll be interesting for people. So anyway, in third place is Dan Barton, rocking Battleclade, with a strong performance with 20, 15, 20, and a final loss on 10 to Canoptic Circle in the final. So a really strong performance with Battleclade there, and Dan showing that off-meta teams still have the option to be able to do well. Clearly, in that final game, he was playing against Canoptic Circle, a team he knows really well. But wasn't able to get Battleclade to do the leverage that he needed to be able to get that final win. But I guess the cool thing is like, hey, if you're a good player, you can rock a team that isn't like one of the top 3 teams, and you can still have fun. You can still play a great game, and you can still come third in a very difficult, challenging tournament. So congratulations, Dan, for your performance with Battleclade. I'm going to do a bit more of a chat on Battleclade in a bit as well, as one of these sort of faction focuses of the week. In second place with Wrecker Crew, it's Nick Collins. You've heard that name before. He's obviously the owner and runner, or company owner of Crossfire Games. So Nick's showing that clearly he not just knows how to create tokens for the game and products for the game, but also how to play the game. So doing really well there with Wrecker Crew, going undefeated 18, 19, 12 and 16. So a great run there with Wrecker Crew. As I've said previously with Wrecker Crew, I think they're in a great meta at the moment. All their access to 5-6 damage, their access to brutal and melee and all that sort of stuff is really good into the main problematic teams. So a lot of the teams that are dominant right now are really struggling into Wrecker Crew, so they're quite a good counter meta pick. I do think, and it might just be because I played a lot of elites, so maybe that's I'm biased from my elite brain, right? But I do think Wrecker Crew might just be a little bit too strong. I'm happy to be told I'm wrong. I'm happy to be told I'm wrong. Like they're a good team, but do people think maybe they're just a little sneaky too strong? Or is that just because I look at the game from an elite perspective and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not really too sure how to kill these guys. Like, it's the combination of the wound pool, the just a scratch, the huge melee damage, the reliability of hits, the blast like kind of everywhere where you need it, and being able to extend the blast to be able to do more damage, I think is really, really useful. I just think that like those combinations make them really good into both hordes and elites, because you can get blasts off into a horde team, so your horde opponent has to like really be careful where they're spacing, and into elite teams, you have just such raw damage that you can focus down a single target and kill them really, really effectively. And their reliability mechanics like makes them more reliable the more dice you roll. So like if you roll a blast into a horde team, you get more like wrecker points from the blast as a result, because you're rolling more dice. So the more explosions, the more damage you're doing, the better you become, and they can snowball really, really quickly. So there's that, and I think all of that's a really strong package. And there's also, combined with that, there's a staging ability with the Breaker Boys being able to give you accessible on terrain. So on open board, you can play like a very, very defensive game where no one can interact with you, but you can interact with their team, right? So that APL buff as a result of a charge means that now you can break walls, charge through, kill people, and they don't have a method to be able to actually reach you. So you have this area denial that's a one-way area denial. I think that's really, really strong and shouldn't be overlooked. And it's actually something that Battleclade have as well, but they have to work a lot harder for it. So Battleclade have to use their breacher to be able to do a similar thing, but it's in one place, not necessarily two places, or more, I guess you could have with Wrecker Crew. And then they have to like, they're a bit slower still, right? They're not charging out of that with such a large range and such a large amount of damage. So anyway, I think maybe sneaky too good, but I might be wrong. Maybe when the meta changes, we'll see a different side to Wrecker Crew, because potentially what will happen is we'll get like let's say Canoptic Circle, Wolf Scouts, and Deathwatch, or I don't know who else is top of the meta right now, we can talk about that in a second, all receive big nerfs. Then maybe Wrecker Crew are now like out as forerunners, but they're in a meta now where there's lots of teams that just like are better at killing them or out activating them or something like this. Because I think what they might struggle with is tac ops a little bit into those teams that out activate them. But people who have more Wrecker Crew experience, what do you think? Am I being harsh? Am I just viewing this from an elite point of view? Maybe so. But anyway, congratulations to Nick for coming second with Wrecker Crew. And then in first place, no surprise, is Canoptic Circle, piloted by Luke Henson. So congratulations, Luke, for piloting a very challenging tournament and managing to get a win as a result of that, because he played some very good players to be able to get to the top there and win with Canoptic Circle. Canoptic Circle just remain dominant in the meta, and between them and Wolf Scouts, it's been pretty stale for a while, but hopefully this might be the last Metawatch that I give talking about these teams, or it might be one more after that. But I think we're nearing the end of the reign of terror that Canoptic Circle has had over the last few months. We will see. But clearly Canoptic Circle still able to play that very defensive game, very uninteractive gameplay between yourself and your opponent. You're pushing forward essentially pawns that no one can really interact with or score off of, and then when they expose their models to be able to kill those pawns, you then get the big hits with your big killers, and those big killers are able to take 2 to 3 turns of activations of punishment before they go down. And that, combined with the ability to have the Matrix node also contest objectives, means that you potentially don't even have to put out any models or any interaction for your opponent to be able to get away with. So it's a really strong combo that just means that your opponent can't really get the game plan off that they want to. But just to round out the rest of the people, so you can see like actually like there wasn't that much Canoptic Circle, that much Wolf Scouts. There were those were very popular teams, and I think a lot of people did play against them. But it was nice to see that a lot of players are now branching out to try and play different things. So you had Jack O'Neill coming in 4th place with Chaos Cult. That was my loss into Jack in round 1. Like piloting a very different team and clearly doing very well with Chaos Cult. Alan Young on Wolf Scouts with a single loss in round 1. I managed to sneak into 6th place there with Angels of Death with a loss. Bot coming in 7th place with Hearthkin Salvages, so showing that Hearthkin really do have a good I think, game into a lot of this meta with the way their grudge tokens interact with a lot of the elite teams. And realistically, the game between myself and Bart, where he lost, was probably more accurate or more likely a draw. But end of round timings kind of thing meant that we ended up with a position where I managed to win by 1. But it was a very, very close game. A lot of fun had in that game. And then in 8th place is Blades of Cain, parted by Guy Barton, going 3-1 as well. So that's your 3-1 bracket. So you can see that you've got sort of Battleclade, Chaos Cult, Wolf Scouts, Angels of Death, Hearth and Salvages, and Blades of Cain. So there is actually some nice variety in there. And you can see Nemclaw just, again, with Tom Shaw sneaking into that 9th place. So although, sure, Canoptic Circle, Wrecker Crew, and Wolf Scouts remain dominant, you can still get wins if you take other teams, and it is going to be more interesting for everyone involved. That's my plea to the UK meta. We'll see if it sticks. There was another tournament happening at the same time, though, which was Nowhere to Fall. And this was a 4-round tournament with 20 players. And we'll just go through the top 3 because it's pretty interesting. So the first thing you're going to notice, right? So the top 3 doesn't include Wreckers, doesn't include Canoptic Circle, and it doesn't include Wolf Scouts. So that's a win straight away, right? Now Kieran clearly is sneaking on the edge there, just missing out on that point. But hey, there we go. They were kept out. So 3rd place is Scott Errington Basley from Tabletop Republic, rocking the XV26 stealth battle suits. So last week, obviously, I think I was saying, was it last week? I was saying that I didn't think stealth battle suits are that great. Scott's obviously like, don't understand what you're saying. Ignore you. Go and win 3 games with some really respectable scores there: 17, 12, 18, and 18. So quite clearly showing that actually they do have a lot of potential when it comes to playing the game. Now, I still think that stealth battle suits, for me, like, I'm not sure if they're a fun team, and so I know people put a bunch of comments on, and I think broadly everyone sort of agreed. So like, is this like? Do you think we could push for a balance change for fun purposes? Scott, you need to stop winning games because otherwise the team's not going to change. So, like, I just think for me, the way that they interact on different like maps is so different. So, if you play Volcus, you can all hide on vantages, and the way the Volcus terrain is, unless you're directly beneath the short Volcus buildings, the ruins, the higher ones are too tall, then you can't shoot these guys. You have to be able to get onto the vantage and work against them, which kind of forces you to maybe take ladders. And on some of them you can, some you can't. And then you're sort of like trying to now push up and get onto vantage just to be able to try and shoot these dudes. And it makes the game really, really difficult, particularly for a slow team. I don't think that's particularly fun or interactive, and I feel like maybe there should be something there to say that they don't get that benefit. Maybe there could be something where they, if you're outside of 3 inches, they count as being within light cover or something, right? So that if you had Seek Light, or if you had like Vantage, you can still see them, or you make the aura 6 inches or whatever. And I think to compensate that, you then give them some damage buffs. Like I want to see this team shooting more. I want to see them have their second shoot for 2 APL. I want to see them, maybe a refresh on Koyon. I think the fact that it's territory based it gives your opponent too much control over your main killing ability. So I'd like to see it be TP2 you get accurate 1, TP3 you get accurate 2, and TP4 you get accurate 3. And then that lets you play like a different game. Your opponent can still rush you down and try and kill you early and do as much damage as they can, but then they can't, just you can't just position weirdly and avoid like any sort of interaction. Anyway, didn't matter for Scott. Scott just went out there and crushed it anyway. So congratulations on your 3rd place, my dude. Well done. In 2nd place is Anthony Henry with his Rattlings, which is awesome to see, with 3 wins and a draw. Looks like both him and Ed drew at the end there to be able to go into the final sort of final placing. So Rattlings, again, an awesome like off meta pick. And just doing great there with Rattlings with a score of 15, 14, 14, 13. So a little bit on the lower side. So I think those are close games. So I'm not quite sure what Anthony's play style is. Potentially maybe he's being a little bit more defensive, only taking the points that he needs to, and just guaranteeing that sort of small win margin. But hey, win's a win, right? and taking that second place, which is awesome to see. Again, with the Rattlings, like I'm not sure if they're in a good meta or not right now. So, like a lot of the elite teams, like if you're on ITD or something, it really depends on like the map and some of the Team World maps. You can get like a long way back very easily, and stage quite well in heavy, and it becomes real difficult for Rattlings to be able to actually respond to you and do damage to you. But I don't know with Rattlings. Like I feel like they could be good. Like I feel like maybe they could be good, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to wait and see on that one. My verdict's out on Rattlings, but I hope maybe this is the start of a new Rattling meta. That would be pretty cool to see. But in first place is Ed Deason rocking Mandrakes, which is good to see. So 19, 20, 15, and 13. So some strong scores at the beginning, and then clearly the draw right at the very end. But locks into first place. I think Mandrakes again remain in a good position. They have the right tools to be able to deal with people, and I think they're probably going to be looking quite good at the end of this balanced data slate. I'm not too sure if they've got the sort of the Eye of Sauron on them when it comes to data slate changes or not. I imagine they will have a little bit from the performance from Worlds, and I'd like to see some of their mechanics be dialed back a little bit, as we talked about previously. But I think the fact that they can do so well with flank into so many teams is really really good for them. So that was the 2 UK tournaments. A bit of a quicker update this time, and less to talk about. But that is not to say that there is not a whole bunch more on the way, and you obviously can find out about these tournaments and you can take part as well by going to talkify.com/KT events, and that's going to then show you all of these, and each of these are hyperlinked, so you can click on them and you can go to the BTP page or wherever they're selling tickets and find out more information. A whole load of these are selling out, so I highly recommend that if you are interested in going to one of these tournaments, you buy a ticket early. And then if you buy a ticket early enough and then lock yourself into going, it gives the TOs enough time to be able to then potentially get more tables, more terrain, and expand the tournament to get more players. Whereas if you wait till the weekend prior, A, you might miss out on a ticket, and B, there's going to be no opportunity for the TO to be able to expand the event, to be able to get you involved, right? So if you are interested in going to these events, I highly recommend you buy early. It helps the TO out, that commitment nice and early on really, really helps the community, and it means that you're not going to be disappointed when you finally find out weekend prior that you can't get a ticket because you left it to the last moment. So that's the first thing. Now, the other thing I'm going to say is for TOs, please consider running some events on Sundays, right? So you can see that there is so many events that are happening on Saturdays, and they're all like conflicting. And I think there's an element to this, which is if we put more events on Sundays, it might help more of the people who are in retail get to more events. I know that sounds like a crazy thing. Now, I don't live in retail. I'm very lucky. Saturdays work fine for me, and obviously the world is all about me. But I know there's other people who struggle to attend events because of when they are. And Saturday for a lot of people is a working day, whereas Sunday usually isn't. So as a consideration, like if you find your events are maybe struggling to get filled, or you're competing with a local scene, just consider a day swap, right? And then it means for me that I can come see you on a Sunday and a Saturday, and I get two tournaments in a weekend. That would be awesome, right? Doubles the amount of gaming opportunities, but it also frees up potentially some people. But maybe do a local poll, right, and see who's available in your area and what they want to do. Anyway, as I said, you can sign up to all these events. There's too many to talk through, but I'm going to be heading to the one in London on the 31st. It's a I think 80 player event now. It's getting massive, and 4 rounds of stuff. So it's going to be good, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And then probably for about 3 weeks, I'm going to be out of the country, unable to do tournaments. So I'm going to have to try and catch up with tournaments as soon as I get back towards the end of February. So I'm going to be looking towards these ones in sort of like Leicester area and that sort of stuff, and what else I can do towards the end of February into March time. But I want to try and see if I can get a good amount of tournaments under my belt. So I'm looking forward to trying to do that. And obviously, as I said, share this, TOs, update it, get your events on there. Consider doing Sundays, and let people know about your events, because it'd be awesome to sell all of these out and then let your TOs expand the event and then sell it all out again. That'd be great. Okay, let's talk global win rates, because I know that's what a lot of people are interested in and why they come here. So, the top five remains broadly unchanged. Brew Brothers have dropped down, and Chaos Cults have gone up. And I'm not too surprised by that, to be honest. I think that makes sense to me. But yeah, let's just get stuck into it then. So remaining problematic. Okay, so it's probably the way to say it. Wolf Scouts remain problematic. A 63% win rate, a 23% placement rate, and a huge amount of players is really quite problematic. All right, so this team is definitely, like, it's got to be nerfed. It has to be nerfed. I hope the nerf is strong enough. I've actually made a Wolf Scout team that I want to play. I just don't want to play them right now. Right, like, I don't think right now they're not vibing for me. I want to try and have a bit more of an interesting game, and I think the raw strength of this team is just a bit too much. I actually think, like, all of their abilities. So if we just reduce the storm size by over half, so make it so it's a 3-inch storm, I think that is a first really good step to getting the team in a better place. Because right now the storm's massive, it does way too much, and it's way too strong. But that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just, as I've said repeatedly, if it all just goes when they're being aggressive, so all the buffs, you make it so it's within the storm, so the piercing reductions within the storm, the talismans within the storm, the damage reductions in the storm, the minus from attacks in the storm, all that sort of stuff, right? And then you go, yep, everything's when you're in the storm, and the storm's now much smaller, or now you have to focus your areas. You have to really consider where you're putting that storm to be able to use those abilities. And I think that'd be a massive change to the way the team plays, and a massive reduction immediately in their win rates. And then you combine that with biasing all of the abilities, so it's when they're fighting, not retaliating, and suddenly they become an aggressive, focused kill team where they can put a lot of pressure on a small area very, very well, but they can't just do it everywhere all the time. And at that point, they become difficult to play. I think they become more fun to play, and you can also kill them very easily if they're not playing that storm and they're not playing those abilities in the right way. I think that would be enough, and I would hope that would bring them down to at least 55%. And get their placings in check as well. But has anyone else got any bright ideas on that one? How would you nerf Wolf Scouts? What would your solution be? Okay, Canoptech, in the camp of remaining problematic, Canoptech still sits where it has been for a while. 60% win rate, 23% placement rate, a huge amount of games played. So remaining really, really popular, and just doing exceptionally well. We've talked through the balance change about in the past, but I think it's a fundamental play style problem. Their warriors, they're just too effective. They can play a very uninteractive game, and even when you're going out and killing these warriors that are supposed to just be chaff, they're doing a huge amount of damage to you with a combination of accurate damage and death, and they're actually quite tanky as well, and all that sort of stuff. It's just too much. So hopefully with those with those being changed, maybe you can see the team power level come down. I still think maybe you'll have to hit the big bugs as well. A wound reduction would be good. Even making them just go down to 20 wounds, so it's a better break point for a lot of weapons would be good. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Maybe 18. Anyway, Canoptech, sure. Mandrakes. We talked through Mandrakes earlier. 57% win rate, 22% placement rate. So those teams at the top, it's interesting. So the automatic filters on this kind of break Mandrakes out of being an A tier team rather than an S tier team. I think, to be honest, we have the S tier for me right now is Wolf Scouts, Canoptech, and Mandrakes, and they are performing way better than most of the other teams beneath them. And some of the teams can play well into them in different ways. So I think Deathwatch can play well into Canoptech. I think Wreckers can play well into Wolf Scouts and Canoptech, but maybe not so good into Mandrakes. And it's the same for Deathwatch. Deathwatch don't do great into Mandrakes in my opinion, or Wolf Scouts, but they can sort of beat Canoptech. And it's this kind of, there's no team there that's able to be able to beat all of them, and that's probably where we're struggling. But anyway. So I personally think the S tier is pretty set with those 3 teams, and there's some counter picks that exist within the A tier. Felgor then. So Felgor 56% win rate and an 18% placement rate, continuing to do well. They obviously don't like elites just being able to double tap and hurt them a lot. I've talked about previously that for shooting teams, this team is super problematic because either you can kill this team and you can like get rid of this team because you have access to double shoot and you can do the damage that you need really reliably, or you just can't, and then you get kind of like stuck not being able to solve the problem. So I think for me, Felgor needs to be again probably toned down to make it easier to kill when frenzied, and then I would give them a buff to make them better at killing elites. That would be my ideal solution for Felgor, is maybe some of the weapons get more crit damage, so they can actually kill elites, but you sort of like hit them elsewhere so they're not as good into shooting hordes and that sort of stuff. But hey, that's just like my opinion. Chaos Cult in 5th place. So a 55% placement rate and a 55% win rate. Placement rate would be mental. 55% win rate and a 19% placing rate. Not a massively popular team, right? So you don't see them very often, and I think that's part of like why they're so successful. Because if you're not used to Chaos Cults, it can be really, really challenging to figure out how to deal with them. And I'm like unsure how best to change this team. The main problem is and I sort of talked about this at the weekend briefly with some players, is that it's some of the when they out activate you, it can be really, really hard to be able to counter things. So let's say, okay, so one of the things that I would like them to do straight up is if you changed the mutations from a strategic gambit to happening when you ready operatives, I think that might be an interesting change, because right now, like, the Chaos Cult player has so much agency over where the mutations are, so that you essentially get to like last activation, and they probably out activate you because they have a lot of activations. They move, they dash, or they get the leader to tell someone to dash, and they move and they dash. So like a mutant yeets itself up the board, and then that mutant, if they win initiative, becomes a torment. Can have +1 move, and then can charge you like even further across the board, to be able to give you some like insane threat ranges. So if they want to, I'm pretty sure with this team out activating you that it's almost impossible, unless you're on like a Tomb World or ITD map with a closed hatch. It's almost impossible on any open board to avoid being charged by this on the beginning of TP2, because they can essentially move 12 inches out of their deployment on turning point 1, and then they can do from there a 9-inch charge with a 1-inch threat range, and that then means that they've gone essentially 22 inches towards you, and the board is only 22 inches wide or 30. So I guess if you're on that, but you'd start 6 inches forwards. Anyway, point being is, I think it's impossible to avoid. So like, whereas if they had to like choose a torment beforehand and then they lose initiative, well, now they've sort of like given it away. They said, hey, my torment's going to be here and all that sort of stuff. Now, I don't know, like what's the counter of that? Is there certain things where that's going to go wrong? Like I don't know, but like it just makes it more interesting for people to be able to counter, and makes it harder for the Chaos Cult person to go, right, oh, I've won initiative, therefore I'm going to do the aggressive thing, or oh, actually I didn't win initiative, therefore I'm not going to do the thing that I wanted to do, or whatever it is. So just a thought on Chaos Cults. They're really strong. If you haven't played against them, you need to read their rules if you go against them, because they have so many different ways to essentially gotcha you. So you need to know what they can do. Otherwise, they will just take you out, and it's a real challenge, right? So yeah. Anyway, that's Chaos Cult. I've spoken enough. Vespid, 52% win rate, a crazy placing rate of 22%, and I'm really surprised by this. Like, Vespid seems to be doing like really well, I guess the interesting thing is the win rate is relatively low. It's only 52%. It's not crazy high, but the placing rate is really high. So it makes me feel like maybe there's some players that have figured this team out, and based on the sample size, are winning really, really consistently, or placing really, really consistently with them. The other option is because they're essentially a casino team, like can you roll fives is broadly the team's thing. Does that mean that they're winning 3 games a lot and losing 1 game, but then your win rate would be higher? So I don't know. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what it is about Vespid. Like, when I play them, I feel like they're somewhat manageable as elites. I think genuinely, sort of, you can go into a dominate game plan if they run flank. They're giving you kills, and you're being able to score those quite reliably. They kill pretty well, but if you use obscurity and you use your threat ranges properly, you can really, really hurt their sort of like killing potential. I think they love the changes to smoke grenades. And the fact that the piercing 1 now goes through, so maybe that's what it is there, and that's why they're doing so well now. Unsure. Now, this is a team that I understand. So Farstalkers, their 52% win rate, I totally get that, and their placing rate 22%, I totally get that as well. Because Farstalkers for me are a team that you can play the objective really, really well, and you can play to win. And if you have a good game plan with poach and the right crit ops and that sort of stuff, you can podium really, really effectively with Farstalkers, and it makes perfect sense to me. And it also makes sense to me that if you're not on that game plan, you don't know what you're doing, and you're not using poach effectively, and you're not getting those crit up points and those tack up points really, really well, then you're just going to die, because the team, like, if you don't have all those things in place, you're not going to get the kills. You're not like relying on some raw stats or something like that. So to me, that kind of makes sense. Like, a good player with Farstalkers, I think, can definitely take them into A tier or whatever. So great to see. Brew Brothers rocking a 52% win rate, 18% placing rate, so dropping down a little bit from previous, I think, but continuing to be okay. And Inquisition at 53, just about, like almost 54% win rate, with a 16% placing rate. Now that's sort of like your A tier teams, right? So these are all teams that are like just over 50%, doing pretty well. And I kind of agree with that. And what's interesting to me, and what I think most people might be sleeping on a little bit, is Inquisition, Brew Brothers, Farstalkers. Like, those are, and Chaos Cult, sorry, those are horde teams that are now rising towards the top of the meta, right? So everyone has been talking about elite meta for a while, and there's definitely a lot of elite teams that you have to worry about and you have to learn how to beat. But Inquisition, Brew Brothers, Farstalkers, and Chaos Cult can definitely beat elite teams, and they're now doing really well. So potentially in your sort of like round 4s and round 5s and round 6s, whatever, you need to start considering how you're going to beat these horde teams. And I guess, to be fair, Vespid is kind of a horde team with them as well, to be fair. So you have to start thinking how you're going to do that. And there's an interesting split there between shooting, a blend of shooting and melee, and sort of full melee teams. So like that's kind of good. So outside of like the S tier, the A tier is becoming way more interesting to me. And I think that as we go down this list, we're going to see that there's some teams that are sort of rising up. I'm really interested to see what happens if a lot of the teams that are lower on this list get buffs, and how that's going to change the way that the whole like rankings react, right? Because if you get like a lot of horde teams become really good, then Goremongers can potentially become good by proxy. Same with Felgor, in my opinion. And then so you might see them start surging forwards. This is kind of like the risk of this sort of like rock paper scissors balance culture. I'm not personally a fan of rock paper scissors balance, but that's maybe where we are. I don't know. Anyway, that was like the A tier. I'll just like touch on how the rest of it's going. So Raveners and Deathwatch are sort of 49-50% win rates, very average placing rates, but massively popular. I mean, look how popular they are, but their win rates and placing rates really, really average. So I know we keep getting told that Deathwatch are super problematic, and their win rates and placing rates continue to fall. So they haven't received any nerfs, but they're doing worse. So I don't know what to make of that. Maybe people are just learning how to play against them now. Maybe the top players have dropped them. Maybe they're all on Wolf Scouts instead. Maybe all the meta chasers are on Wolf Scouts, and all the casual people who just actually enjoy Deathwatch are now playing Deathwatch. Nemesis Claw, again, record sort of 50% win rate, 10% placing rate, doing pretty consistently good. B tier, makes sense, and really popular. It's worth noting when you look at these, like what teams are more popular than others. And to be fair, a lot of the newer teams are more popular. So when you see like Wolf Scouts, Knoptech, Mandrakes, Vespid, Brood Brothers, Raveners. Brood Brothers aren't that new, to be fair, but Deathwatch, all that sort of stuff. Like all these teams are more newer teams, and they seem to be quite popular. Sanctifiers down into 49% win rate, 9% placing rate. Not many people playing them. They don't seem to be popping off. I still think they've got potential. I just think that they're just not as popular as they were previously, and people have moved away onto new things. Now, interestingly, Aquilon's down at 46% win rate, 12% placement rate. Again, like you would feel like Aquilons would be good into like a lot of this meta with elite teams. Large access to sort of melt weapons, piercing 2, that sort of thing. Huge amounts of board presence and board control. But I think they can't deal with the Canoptech, the Just a Scratch, that kind of thing, and they can't deal with the fact that those models are so far away. And actually, what they're doing is they're dropping the melter to go kill a warrior, or to stand on a node that's being controlled by a matrix point or whatever. And that's the kind of the challenge for that team. But I do think Aquilons are good. Goremongers remain sort of not performing too well, but also not performing too badly. I think for me, sadly, Goremongers just exist in this. They're just like problematic. I've already said previously how I'd fix them. You massively increase their damage so they can kill elites, and you then also massively reduce their durability so people can kill them. And they become glass cannons, melee team, and that would be probably fine. But as they stand, like they are just problematic. Hand of the Archon down at 46%, Exaction 47%, Kazakin 46%, Angels of Death down at 45%, and a 7% placement rate. Now, so I took Angels of Death, and more to come on this, but I think they're okay. I think, I mean, C tier is probably fair. I think they're just like, in comparison to what a lot of the other teams can do right now, they're just not as spicy as what a lot of the other teams can do. But I still think there's stuff to be gotten out of Angels of Death. So more to talk about. Rattlings, Stealth Suits, 44% win rates. Then we go down to Breaches and Blazercane, Jaeger, Plague Marines, Salvages, Battleclade, Scouts, and High-Tech, all the way down to sort of a 32% win rate, and not actually podiuming once, which is pretty sad to see. So the bottom 5, is Scouts, High-Tech, Scouts, Battleclade, Salvages, and Plague Marines. But this was the point I wanted to make from the Brighton Killteam event, was even with like a team down here, like a 36% win rate team, you can still do well, right? Like you can take this team, and with player skill, you can still get third in the tournament. So as much as like we're told the meta is broken and you can't do anything, all that sort of stuff, like there is still an element to this game where player skill determines victors, and I love that about it. And so we'll look a bit more in detail at that shortly. So let's do the focus then. So clearly, I took Angels of Death, so I want to look at those, and the other one that I'll look at is going to be Battleclade. So why did I take Angels of Death at the weekend? Let's talk about that first. So I took Angels of Death because I was debating between running Deathwatch, Wolf Scouts, Angels of Death. What else did I debate? Scouts, and I wanted to have something where I could have fun. I wanted something where I thought I had a chance to do well, but I also knew that if I wasn't running the big sweaty stuff, I probably wasn't necessarily going to become first. So I was happy to lose games, right? So I was like, for me, the fun aspect, the challenge was going to be more fun and more enjoyable to me than just winning the games outright. I wanted good, challenging games. And I knew that going into that meta, that Shark Tank in particular, I was like, this is going to be a very, very difficult tournament. I'm unlikely to win anyway. So let's make sure that if I do win, I want to have fun. And also, if I were to win with Angels of Death, I think that would have been a far better victory than having one with Deathwatch or me having one with Wolf Scouts or whatever, right? So for me, it was kind of like this will be more fun, more interesting. So I sort of did an analysis of the meta. I didn't quite know what there was going to be, so I didn't, because we had to submit lists and stuff ahead of time. So there's no like I get to see what people are running and then choose my chapter tactics afterwards. I had to choose beforehand with my list, and I was like, okay, well, I'm always going to take Hardy, right? So Hardy is really useful if you're against like Elven teams, anyone with rending, anyone with sort of like crit spam, anything like that. Hardy's really good. Access to crit 5 saves is just fantastic. The other benefit that Hardy has is the normal damage of 3 or more reduced by 1 when retaliating on the first instance it happens. That's really useful again against a lot of the melee teams, right? So I was like, cool, that's giving me a bonus against shooting and melee teams, increasing my durability, and the amount of times it comes up where you live on 1 wound versus a lot of enemy models is massive. So for me, that's absolutely like what you want to be able to take. The secondary chapter tactic caused me no end of trouble, right? Because I was like, what do I take it against? Like, how do I like plan what this is going to be? And so previously I'd taken Jeweler, and I thought Jeweler was useful because it means that if you're against someone who gets a lot of crits, a lot of lethal 5, that sort of stuff, you can use Jeweler to be able to mean that you survive. But then I went into a matchup against Wreckers, who have a lot of brutal, where Jeweler does nothing for you, and I realised that actually like the problem there is I don't think that Angels of Death, unless you have aggressive, has a win path into Wreckers. So rending became the most important thing, because I did like the maths and I thought about it. I was like, okay, how do you kill a Wrecker knob with Angels of Death? And the only answer is you roll a crit with your captain with a power fist, and you get rending, and that means you have 2 crits, and then you can kill him in 2 crits. And I think that is the only answer, the only available option that is there to you. Otherwise, they just scratch you, they don't die, your captain dies or takes too much damage and can't get a double kill or anything like that. Whereas the captain with the power fist can reliably kill the Orc Knob. Additionally, some sadist gave Wolf Scouts -1 damage. So you need to be able to do reliably 14 damage in melee to be able to kill them. How do you do 14 damage in melee with Angels of Death team? Well, you either do 2 crits with a power fist, which is rending, or you do 2 crits with a chainsword and then hit them with a normal. So again, all of these things are leading towards you need to have aggressive. It's the only way you're going to be able to kill these models in melee. When it comes to being parried out and that sort of stuff, if you roll a natural crit, you get 2 crits. They can't then parry both of them, and you have a chance to be able to survive against some of the brutal weapons and that sort of stuff as well. So the answer that for me, the reason why, and I just realized I'm just stealing all my tips for the patient priority question now. Anyway, too late. The reason why I took aggressive was by looking at that meta and thinking to myself, what do I think is the worst teams for me to face? I think Wolf Scouts is going to be really bad for me to face. I think Wreckers is going to be really bad for me to face. I think like Chaos Cult's going to be really bad for me to face. I think Hearthkin's going to be really bad for me to face. And I went, cool. With those teams, I think these combinations of abilities are the best options. And I didn't really have too much of a plan against Mandrakes. Hardy helps. And the other thing is tilting shields lets you get around the lethal 5. So that was basically it. That was my logic on that one. And you can look at these stats and you can see what teams you do worse against. Well, Mandrakes, it's not good, 13% win rate. Wolf Scouts, 25% win rate. Vespid, not great. So Vespid, the solution for me personally is smoke grenades, sniper, dominate, and play a slow game. Against Deathwatch, I actually think that it's not that bad of a matchup if you know what you're doing. As AOD, you have an extra marine. Your marines are pretty reliable at killing their guys, and you can actually kill them. I don't think it's too bad. But anyway, Aquilans. This is a play style thing for me. So I think if you're playing against Aquilans, you have to know how to play against Aquilans, which is you need to be able to play slow on TPT. You have to wait for them all to drop onto the board, see where their board state is, and then react to what is put in front of you. I talked about Wreckers. I didn't talk about Canoptech, but Again, the aggressive is useful there for getting around the just to scratch. Just scratch not working on crits is really, really important, and therefore being able to get aggressive is really important. Same for Chaos Cults and this sort of thing. So if you want to be able to kill a Torment, being able to two-hit it with an aggressive Power Fist is probably the best way to be able to achieve that. And the one that's odd here is that Salvages is a 66% win rate. There's not many games there. I actually think it's a favourable, not favourable, that's not necessarily true, but if you're on open board, I think it's favourable for Salvages, and if you're on ITD, I think it might be favourable for Angels of Death. But anyway, so like a lot of people, when they choose their teams, they start speccing into stuff like, you know, Goremongers or whatever, and they go, oh, how do I beat all these teams? And they double down on stuff that they can kill really easily. And actually, you need to start thinking about how do you beat the stuff that you can't kill easily. And so for me, that's what that was. So Battleclade, I don't need to spec into that. I should already be winning that game. Same with Blades of Cain. So me taking Jeweler to be able to get around their lethal 5 or something like this, bit of a waste of time. But instead, I should be focusing on the teams down here, which I think I'm going to struggle to be able to beat. And a lot of those teams, I think those 2 faction abilities are really useful into. But what do you guys think about the Angels of Death faction chapter tactics? Like, what do you want to choose? What techniques and interest have you got when it comes to playing them? Okay, next up, I want to talk about Battleclade. So, there's a team that is struggling, right? It's a 36% win rate. And like, I just want to quickly look at what they're doing well into and what they're doing badly into, and then you can start seeing, like, if you're going to play Battleclade, what you need to start prepping for. So, Kazakin, well, no real surprise. Higher-Tech, no real surprise. These are some of the worst teams. Interestingly, like Chaos Cult, and this is mental to me that they're doing well into Chaos Cult. I guess they have access to a lot of flamers, sort of 4/4 damage, and they can shoot a lot. So if you can shoot twice quite quickly. So if you don't kill them, maybe it's that being able to react and be able to get those flamer shots off. This is 4 games played, so let's not get too carried away. But interesting to see. Scouts kind of make sense to me. Stealth suits I'm interested by, because I think you would struggle to be able to get the shots off, but maybe stealth suits just can't kill you in return, so maybe it's that. Anyway, the good news kind of starts running out. Salvages 66%, Blades of Cain 50%, Plague Marines 50%, and then suddenly it all starts coming bad, right? So like, not having a great time against Wreckers. Wolf Scouts, actually 42% is pretty good against Wolf Scouts in comparison to a lot of teams. Brew Brothers, Felgor, Inquisition, Deathwatch. So they seem to be struggling against Elite, which is interesting because a lot of the narrative when it comes to this team is that you are better versus Elites. Yet we're not really seeing many Elites up here, and we're seeing a lot of Elites down here that they're not doing well into. So it makes me think that maybe actually that narrative might be wrong based on stats. If you're a Battleclade player, is that your like lived experience from your personal games, or is that just a tournament experience, right? So do you find that you actually find the Deathwatch matchups and the Angel Death matchups really rough? Is only having one melter gun like really, really difficult? And they have access to quite a few dev wounds from like the leader's pistol, and the flamers can do work. I mean, to be fair, like my game against Battleclade, the guy rolled so poorly that I don't think it was really a fair game. Like, it was one of those things where you make one mistake and then your dice just betray you, and it becomes so much worse. It was one of those games. So I haven't got like a truly I think valid opinion on it, but the stats seem to suggest it's a very favourable matchup for Angels of Death. I think particularly if you're on ITD, it is as well. So. But what's your guys' experience? Because for me, it's looking like the team needs help versus elites, and other things. Now, this is shocking, and something that I can totally understand is the fact they have such a low win rate versus Goremongers, Mandrakes, and Canoptech. Like, this all makes sense at the bottom here. So some of the single games less so, but the fact they've played Mandrakes 18 times and they've only won that twice. Is pretty telling. So it feels like they have some real problems against some of the key meta teams, Mandrakes and Canoptech clearly, and Deathwatch they're a bit better against, but against everyone else they seem to be really struggling. But with all that said, you can still do well with them if you know what you're doing. Okay, that is the Metawatch overview Hopefully that was useful. But what I'll do now is, for the subscribers to the channel, I'll give you a subscriber benefit. If you're not a subscriber, that's where the show ends. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you coming and stopping by, and I'll see you next week. But if you are a subscriber, then this tactical tip is for you. And if you want to get it, you also can just grab it by just clicking subscribe. It's nice and easy. Cool. So let's get straight into it then. So this I learned from my first game this weekend, and it's, I think, is why I lost, and I will, so what I didn't do was I didn't consider the synergy between my tac op and the crit op and the placement of my models and what that would mean for my ability to score kill op and crit op later on. So we're playing secure. I am against Chaos Cult. And I see on the map a really good opportunity for me to be able to use Vantage to be able to get a plant banner off. And I think to myself, that's pretty good. I think I'm going to be able to max plant banner. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to get a lot of VP on it and make it really, really hard for my opponent to be able to do anything about it. He hasn't taken any equipment to be able to stop it. He would have to spec into climbing, which is good for me because then it means he's not specking into more movement or better defensive saves or whatever, and it means that I like if he uses his mutations to counter my banner, then I'm in a good place, right? Was my logic. But the downside to that is sure, I did max. I got 6 points on my tac op, and I got my full 3 points on primary. But I found myself towards the end of the turning points 3 and 4 really struggling to have resources in the right place to both contest key objectives and at the same time hold my banner, right? So I wanted guys on the Vantage to be able to hold the banner. I wanted guys on the objectives to be able to hold the objectives. And I was losing models and I wasn't getting the damage output that I wanted. So which then meant that I had to start making like more choices in this, and that resource management became difficult. So although like when you initially look at that game, you could say, well, you maxed your tac op. Like, you maxed your tac op and you got your max primary op. So obviously you made the right choice with your tac op, right? That's true. Sure, I did get those points, but I also lost a lot of points. So in the last turning point, if I had run Dominate, I also probably would have scored 3 VP on Dominate. And I probably would have got that quite safely. And not just would I have got that quite safely, but I would have been on the objective being able to score crit op as well. And that would have meant that I had potentially more crit op points and more dominate points, and therefore I'm doing both, right? So now like the synergy is there because now I'm getting crit op, I'm killing where I want to kill, I'm killing his models on his objectives as opposed to just staying on advantage and not getting kills, and I'm getting kill op points because I'm now killing more enemies with the game. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some risk associated because your opponent then gets to try and kill you back. But I felt often that I was having to make these really difficult choices, and the positioning of my models became really tough. So, whereas I think had I had that ability earlier on, just to say, actually I'm going to run Dominate, I would have been able to focus more on just securing the crit op, locking it down, and then punishing my opponent when he came to try and remove that crit op for me. So, the tactical tip that I've learned from that is consider the synergy between your tac op, your crit op, and the kill op, and make sure that you don't just like choose one just to max that one. Think about it holistically from all the game point of view, and how is it helping you being able to score points elsewhere. What is that resource cost taking from you? Because the banner becomes like a thing that you've got to stake a resource to. And that's fine if you can place it on an objective or you can place it in an area where it's going to be relevant to the game, but it's less fine if it means that you now can't have someone on the objective and you're resource limited and suddenly you're not able to do things. There's more to that game, but like that's one of the things that I think got wrong from a game plan point of view. And there was a few things tactically as well that I could have done better to be able to potentially get that win. And a combination of those things would have meant that potentially I would have got a better result on the day. But from a game plan point of view, I said when I picked the tac op, I'm going to take a risk. And I think in hindsight, it actually ended up costing me. Although I played the tac op well, I think when it came to TP3 and 4, I had less resources where I wanted to have resources because of the way I was running that tackle. Cool, hopefully all that makes sense. Next up, we're into Patreon priority question. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like. If you think that actually I've got it wrong and you've got better tactical tip, tell me your tactical tip below. I think people are going to be interested to know what your tactical tips are when it comes to Killteam. I'm always trying to learn as much as I can do and get as much influence out of people to be able to improve my game plan and improve my my ability of playing the game. Next up, Patreon priority questions. So I run a Patreon. You can join as well for £3 a month, or whatever your local currency is. Essentially, like it's a way for me to be able to upgrade stuff. So I've got like lights now. I've got a better camera now. I've got a microphone that's hopefully a little bit better now. I've got better software now. Like I'm slowly doing the things I need to do to be able to hopefully improve the channel quality as time goes on, and that's what we're working towards. And it also means that I can travel to tournaments and actually like play games and stuff, because traveling all over the UK to local national scenes, whatever, does get expensive. So thank you so much to the patrons for supporting, and my way of paying back is I try to give the opportunity to influence where the show goes, influence the questions that get asked and all that sort of stuff, and one of the things is Patreon priority questions. So if you want to have a question answered by me live on the show about your team, your faction, your tack-up choice, whatever, you can just reach out on Patreon, and I'll then be able to help, hopefully. So one of the questions that I had actually came in via a different means. So one of my Patreon members messaged me on Discord and basically said, hey, like I saw that you were running AOD. And it wasn't a direct question necessarily, but like I think it's worth making it into one. And he was interested to know if I had any sort of advice on AOD and how I could play it, and how that would be, and what advice I would give to be able to someone to do that. So I've already talked about faction chapter tactics. Now, the first thing I'll say on that is for me, that was what the meta I was expecting to go into. So I thought right then, I'm going to be playing against Wolf Scouts, I'm going to be playing against Canoptech, I'm going to be playing against Wreckers, I'm going to be playing against like Mandrakes, and I think in those matchups, Hardy's going to be really important because it's going to ruin their breakpoints. So Wolf Scouts have loads of 4-5 damage. Being able to make that become 3, 4, 5 means that you don't die, particularly if you can turn off things like Rending or Lethal 5, so they get less crits through. So with Tilting Shield, which is really important. So that was like a key thing. I was like, okay, I can survive more against these models. I'm less likely to die from like one of their wolves jumping out and charging me or something like this. So that's why I chose that one. But I also know that in the meta there was a sort of Hearthkin player that's 100% going to be playing Hearthkin, and I'm terrified of that matchup. And therefore having crit saves on 5s is like a non-negotiable for me, because that combined with the transhuman physiology to be able to like bump up your crit saves, massively increase your durability in those sorts of those engagements. So if you've got like a Hand of the Archon player or a Hearthkin player in your local meta, really consider that Hardy, because it's going to be really useful, but it's also useful against a lot of the other meta teams that are currently out there. And then the secondary, like again, you need to sort of analyze where you want to bias your team's ability. So if you're playing, for instance, ITD a lot, right? So if the entire tournament is ITD, then actually I think the sharpshooter's ability can be really, really good, because when you go on guard, the rule is during an activation that this operative hasn't done the reposition or a charge, you get accurate 1 and you get severe, right? If you're guarding, you're always during an activation where you haven't done those things. So you, like, if you think your game plan is going to have a lot of guarding actions, then that can become really useful. The difficulty with that normally is that like you normally want to move and shoot and do that sort of stuff, and clearly that doesn't work very well. So I like being able to spec into it if I'm playing on ITD, and I think it's going to be a defensive turn where I'm just going to sit in places where I go, all right, I'm going to sit around a corner and go on guard, and if someone comes in, I'm going to shoot them or whatever, and therefore I can spend a CP and give myself a team-wide buff, because I don't think I'm going to be getting into melee. But my I guess point is, if you know that you're going to be playing against a meta where APL manipulation is really big, and there's going to be loads of stuns and there's going to be loads of shocks or whatever, then consider going in Indomitable, whether it's is it Indomitable? The one that does that, Resolute, sorry. like consider what's relevant to your meta, and then choose those things. So for me at the moment, it was I was hardy and aggressive, but really look at what's coming up. Do you think you're going to be a team that's just going to be charged down a lot, and actually you need to shoot them a lot? So maybe fallback for one is more important. But a lot of those abilities I think are just better to have as reactive abilities. So you kind of want to say, like, what do you want to have up the majority of the time? Analyze your meta and think about it that way, and then go, what do you want to have when it's not? When it comes to tac ops, I think the standard dominate and plant banner are your go-to. Route, if the map is appropriate, is also makes sense. And for me, like, if you're playing dominate against a team that out activates you, just remember not to, if you're playing plant banner against a team that out activates you, remember not to commit that banner until you absolutely need to, and you can commit that on a counteract if you want to. There's also a few bits of tech that I quite like when I'm using AOD. So if anyone doesn't know, you've got a CP which is called a firefight point for 1 CP, which is called Wrath of Vengeance. This lets you do 2 counteractions. And there's a piece of equipment that you can have, which means that if you're on engage, you can do it for free. Now, I like it because you can, if you're on like ITD, you can sit like behind a doorway or a hatchway off to the side on engage, or behind the door and keep the door closed. But you can then Wrath of Vengeance, open the door, shoot, or you can move across and shoot, whatever you want to do. And you can sort of do that 2-inch move and shoot, and then still be obscured to people and be able to get a shot off. And it gives you this sort of like ability to have ball control and ball presence. People aren't necessarily expecting it. The other one, obviously, is the sniper being able to do that as well. But you have that ability to you, which I think is really useful. You can also do a double counteract on conceal. You don't have to be on engage to do it, right? So you can have to be on engage to do it for free with the equipment. But if you haven't got the equipment, or you're whatever else, you can do it without. So another thing that you might want to consider is if you're struggling with your threat ranges, sit outside of the threat range or in cover, but be within 2 of an objective, and then your last counteract can be that counteract onto the objective and then steal it from them. In my game against Chaos Cults, that was an opportunity that I missed. I didn't think about it, and I probably should have done, and if I had done, I could have taken a little bit more risk on my model, and I would have been much better, and I would have potentially been able to get myself an extra crit up point, deny my opponent a crit up point, and I would have been a much better into the next turning point. And it probably would have been a 2 to 4 point swing depending on how the game went, which would have been big, right? So something to consider. You can do on conceal. So that's the generic points. The other thing is, for me, I've been running pretty much consistently the same loadout. So Captain is an auto pick for me. I think he's just so useful when it comes to the deploys, also the abilities that he has access to, the just a scratch, the killing potential with the base damage of 5, the crit damage of 7, and a plasma pistol. He can get double kills. He's really durable. He's a must pick now, in my opinion. I think the sniper is the same. The sniper gives you access to that long range ignore obscurity. It gives you seek light. It gives you counteracts on conceal that put out damage, and therefore I think those 2 models are like your absolute must picks. I think the gunner having access to those crack grenades and that sort of thing is just really useful. And I want to have some range sort of threats that are out there. The grenadier also makes perfect sense. And so really looking at what 2 warriors you want to include. And for me, in the current meta against a lot of the people that I'm playing against, having access to 5 attacks, 4/5 in melee, even if I'm not necessarily using it, but as a defensive tool, is really useful, because I can move up to within 2 inches of someone and double tap them in the face and probably kill them potentially. But then when someone charges me, I'm now 5 attacks, and now far more likely with 5 attacks and a reroll to get my rending off, which means that I'm more survivable, more durable, and that sort of stuff in melee as well. So for me, those warriors were really useful. I got a lot out of them, and that's kind of how I want to play that game. Other than that, all the standard tips and tricks for playing with elites kind of make sense. So hopefully that was useful. Hope it's given you some operative selection ideas, some tag-up selection ideas. I will just quickly touch on equipment. Tilting shields are amazing against so much of the meta right now. The amount of teams out there that are reliant on rending, or lethal 5 or something like this, or even lethal 4 on the Wolf Scouts, and being able to just remove that is exceptionally useful. So if you're playing against the Wolf Scouts and you need to go and kill the Wolf pack leader, being able to tilting shields and to say, actually, you're not going to have lethal 4 up this fight because I don't want you to have it. That is game changing when it comes to trying to kill someone versus not kill someone in melee, right? So really big, really important, and something that I would highly recommend you look at. But you can ask your opponent the question: how much lethal do you have? How much rending do you have? How much severe do you have when it comes to melee? They can then give that information. You can make your equipment choice. But for me, it was really useful into a lot of the matchups that I otherwise wouldn't have taken it. Cool. That is the end of this week's Metawatch video. Hopefully you found that useful. If you did, please consider dropping a like, subscribing. As I said, jump on the Patreon, whatever you want to do. It really does mean a lot. And if you can share it with local communities, I will try and continue to grow the channel, get more people involved in Killteam. It's what it's all about. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we have a data slate in the next few weeks. And I'm going to talk about loads of new information and loads of new stuff. And that's what I want to do. So in the comments below, what is your data slate wish list? Let me know. Like, what are you hoping for? What teams are you looking out for? Me personally, I'm hoping Scouts get a big buff. I want to see Scouts become really interesting. I want to see like Angels of Death get a little bit of love. I want to see Kazakin get some love. I'm an Imperial guy, right? So I want to see those teams get love. But I'll probably try and play more elites. But I want those elites to be dialed down so they become more interesting and more fun to play with. And if not, maybe I'll stick on Angels of Death for a bit. But I'm hopeful that those teams at the top are going to take a knock, and we'll see a new meta come on in. So that's it from me. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week. Take it easy. That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we have a Patreon where you can get exclusive access to all our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.